So thanks everyone for coming, really appreciate it. My name's Paige, and I am a gravel professional cyclist, and then this is Gabby. So
I'm Gabby, I've been working at Freewheeler for about 2 years almost. Been cycling for 4 years, so not super long. I mean, I've been riding bikes my whole life, but not as intensely as now, because I suddenly found out you can have a bike that fits you.
So part of the reason we wanted to do this clinic is just because, you know, if those of you that aren't familiar with my story, I kind of entered the professional cycling scene in a rapid way. I was a runner before, and all of a sudden I, was on this bike and I just didn't know how to repair it, and it was very frustrating to me. And I realized that the technical and mechanical side of this sport is very limiting for new people to feel comfortable, and just basic things like repairing a flat tire. So the goal of these clinics is just to empower more people to ride their bike with confidence and to be able to handle anything that comes your way. And you'll learn through tonight that I may not have all the answers, which is why Freewheeler is hosting this clinic here, and they're the shop that I go to, and they never make me feel silly for asking questions or not knowing or bringing my bike in with something ridiculous that's probably very straightforward to them. So it's kind of a comfort for me to come here, and it's nice that Gabby's a female mechanic. I just think that is awesome that she's here. So I talked with a bunch of you guys earlier, but so you have, tubeless, and then you have clincher. So a lot of times we say tubes, like if you're running a tube, then we're referring to that as like a clincher. So your setup would be a clincher setup because you have tubes inside of your tire. And so tubes are, clincher setups are very easy to use, and they're very cost effective and inexpensive. I would say they were more popular, and tubeless is becoming more popular nowadays. And tubeless is easier because it's more likely to seal very small and minor flats along the way. But there is some maintenance, like you have to add sealant, and the process of repairing the flat is much different. So you need to know if you have if you have a clincher setup versus tubeless setup. There's also a third option called tubular, which we're not going to get into. Those are a hassle for the shop to set up. They are not a fan of those. So we won't really touch on that too much, but just understanding clincher versus tubeless. From my perspective, I like tubeless because I do mostly off-road racing, and I like to run a lower pressure, so I'm not risking pinch flats. And so for mountain biking and gravel racing, tubeless is definitely more popular. But like I said, the patching mechanism and repairing those flats are a little different. So I think Gabby and I are going to go through what she carries in her kind of flat repair kit, and then what I carry. And then that might be a good starting point to see what are the essentials to have with you for repairing. So
do we all kind of already have a kit that you carry with you, or do you usually just plan on someone will pick me up? All right. Okay. Cool. Okay.
All right. So we gotta get Ken a kit before he leaves. This is what it sounds like.
Yep. We got a multi-tool here. As long as you have all the Allens that you need to at least do what you're comfortable with, that's all you really need. A pair of pliers in here.
Her kit's very intense. She carries pliers with her. This is the next level. This is how you tell you're a mechanic when you carry pliers with you.
You're right. I always have duct tape, which you can use. We're going to talk about it more, but there's tire boots, which are always nice to have in your kit, which I generally just have duct tape because you can use it for that. And a tire boot. I've always got a master link. If you have questions about those later, we can talk. But it's just for if your chain breaks.
Very important to carry, because if your chain breaks on a ride, you can't fix that unless you have that with you.
Yep.
Which again, we'll cover that more in the drivetrain and chain class. But
zip ties I like, just in case something random decides to fall off your bike. It could be a shifter. You take a fall and your shifter falls off, and you need to at least get it out of your way. A lighter and a patch kit. There is glueless and glue-on patches. A lighter for many reasons, lighting fires. But for one, which we're not gonna do too much in this part, just because generally if you're getting a flat, just carry a tube with you. You're probably not gonna wanna sit there and patch your tube. You can take your tube home and do that at home. Or if you're touring, you might need to do that, which is why I've got one with me. And a bottle of lube. Yeah, you're always gonna need some of that on your chain. And, oh, big one, tire levers, which we'll go over. Those are super important to have.
All right, so mine's a little different. I have a saddlebag, and I actually have like multiple saddlebags that I just keep on different bikes. So this is just kind of like my general one. So, and like I said, I run tubeless, so this is set up for a little bit more of a tubeless repair. Again, I have lube for mine because off-road, if I'm going through river crossings, you know, like sometimes you will need that. And I have CO2s. Okay, so first thing is, like I said, I'm running tubeless, but if I can't dart or bacon strip or to repair that, then I'm gonna have to put a tube in. So I still carry a tube, even though I have a tubeless setup. And that can be really messy, but this is kind of like last ditch effort, you know, throw a tube in there. And then I have the dart. These things are awesome. I highly recommend carrying these if you're running a tubeless setup. The dart, I think it's a Stan's dart. This is the one that I have. It has 2 attachments, and you can buy replacements for these as well. This is what it looks like here, and we'll go through kind of how to use that. Basically, you stab it into the tire, and then this actually will be sticking out of the tire, and that's normal, and you fill it back up with air, and that's how you patch it. So for me, I can basically shove this into the part that is leaking, and it's done and repaired, and so there's 2 of them on here. This is kind of nice because it gives a little bit more leverage. You kind of have to put a little bit of pressure into it. And then I also carry like a multi-tool is very essential for riding. And I think that if there's one thing to take away in addition to the flat repair items, like make sure you have a multi-tool. I don't know if you guys have been riding before in your seat, kind of like accidentally slides down. Raise your hand if that's happened. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, this is definitely wrong. So it's like if you don't have the right tool to adjust your saddle, that's really important. I've also had my cleat attachment adjust mid-ride, so multi-tool is just helpful. This one is a Crank Brother one. It also has a valve core device here that's really helpful, and we'll go through why that's important later, just because it can be part of the flat repair process. And then it also has bacon strips here. So not the food bacon, but they're really sticky, and this is also another method for repairing tubeless. So basically you just take one of these strips and you shove it and plug it into the tire essentially. So yeah, that's multi-tool. And then like Gabby said, a tire lever is very important. More CO2, and with CO2 always an adapter. This is the one that I currently have, but basically the takeaway with CO2 is that I think it's important to be able to control how much CO2 you have. Some adapters will release it very quickly and there's not a lot of control, and other ones have something that has a lot more control, like this here, and we're going to go through that later just because that can be intimidating, using a CO2 and thinking it's going to explode in your face, which you don't want. And then like I mentioned earlier, usually I have my multi-tool with me, but sometimes just like a quick Allen wrench for quick release, I just carry this because it's much easier for me to whip this out and take that off if I need to remove the wheel. And then if I have a commuter bike that I have set up as a clincher setup, and I will carry kind of the flat repair kit, and as you can see it has bacon strips in there too.
We've got quick release with disc brake, which is generally pretty foolproof unless your axle is getting stuck for some reason, and that means you need to have somebody grease it for you. So really you're just pulling that lever up, spinning it out, and since you don't have a brake to worry about, you just pull it on out, and it's pretty easy. in terms of removal at least.
Yeah, so after you get the wheel on, you know, this might obviously not be on a stand, so just pick the front wheel up and then just kind of spin it. And you'll be able to hear if it's rubbing up against the rotor, which can be frustrating because you're just like, okay, how do I fix that? The simplest thing to do is just take the wheel off and put it back on again, because most of the time it's just not lined up where it needs to be. So if you're hearing that, but the point is spin your wheel to make sure it's lining up and not catching on the rotor. And then if it is catching, just take it off and try it again, and usually that fixes it.
It should be easy to spin it out.
And if it's not engaged, you end up stripping that through axle, which I've done twice on my bikes. You can ask Freewheeler. I had to have Jason put new ones in there, and that's because I didn't have the right Allen wrench. So I was cranking on it and it wasn't engaged all the way, and eventually it strips and then you can't remove it. So that's really important, and I learned that the hard way.
Yep. Yeah. Here, a lot of derailleurs these days, usually 11 or 12 speed, will have, or usually SRAM too, will have like a little pin here that will allow you to get your cage out of the way. If you don't have that, it's not a huge deal. You can still, you're gonna have to move your cage out of the way. You'll just have to get comfortable doing that, and you can be kind of aggressive with it as long as you're not like bending it one way or the other.
Yeah, push it down, don't pull it to the sides. That's key for the derailleur.
Yep. All right, so in terms of reinstalling this wheel, we're gonna do what we talked about before and have your chain set on the cog that you originally took it off with. Again, I usually use the smallest cog. Paige says she uses the third cog, which either way
is probably better.
Either way is fine as long as you know and you're able to get it off. And then here, it's a little different from the front. We're paying attention to kind of three different things here. We're paying attention to what cog your chain is on, rotor in the caliper here, and your dropouts. I usually look at chain and rotor between the pads before I worry too much about the axle, because eventually you're going to end up where you want your axle anyway. So then that slid itself into place. Again, you kind of got to wiggle it, trying to find where you want it, or you can kind of look. And then that should pop all the way through. For a rotor rub, which this one might be rubbing just a tiny bit, but that might just be an adjustment thing that we need to take care of.
Yep. Yeah. So since this one's kind of on the bigger side, I'm not sure I would necessarily do this, but let's say it was smaller. The first thing I would do if I'm running tubeless is I would flip it over and I would just let it sit there. And the reason for that is the sealant is all gonna go to the bottom, and my hope is it just plugs it. And then I don't have to mess with anything else. So find it, and if it's small, drop it to the bottom so the sealant will pool there and hopefully close it off. So once I do that, I let it sit for about a minute or so, or as long as I can, because I'm super impatient. And then I just put air into it and I start riding. And if I start riding and the bike is good and there's no flat, then you're set. So that's something that's a quick and easy fix. Now, if it's bigger like this one here, and I'm not gonna be able to fix it on with the sealants, then the next thing I would do is grab my dart. So I showed you guys these earlier. And so basically I'm gonna find where that was at again. Pack, I can puncture this one, right?
Go right ahead.
Okay, now I'm trying to find where it was at, of course.
I can get you a pick.
Oh, here we go. Okay, so I found it. So basically, you'll see, you guys can get closer if you want. So this is what the dart looks like, just so you guys can be comfortable with that. So it's sharp here, and these are kind of soft, like a little plug, okay? So you can see the hole here. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find right where it's at. And sometimes I put pressure here because if it's flat already, I'm just gonna bump the wheel, which we don't want. So I kind of put a little bit of pressure here. until tonight. There we go. Okay, so did you hear the click? So that's the cue for me, is that I want to hear that click. And the same goes for bacon. If you're using bacon, and I can usually, show you, you'll hear a pop or a click that tells you you're in the tire. So then from there, it should come out pretty easily, of course. That can happen. Screw that back on. I think this might be old. Okay, so that's what it looks like, okay? So this is gonna come off, and these are handy. And then this is what it looks like. So sometimes you'll wanna keep this on you, don't toss this, because occasionally you'll start pumping this up, and sometimes you'll wanna put this in even a little bit more. So you'll kind of just push it in and just make sure it's really in that spot, okay? So again, you heard that pop, and then let's pump it up and see how we did. Yeah, and they're harder to get seated, I think, the tubeless ones, which is part of the reason I carry CO2, because there's a little bit more power. Otherwise, like, I'm spending half the day on the side of the road using the hand pump, and I'm a cyclist with no upper body, so ain't nobody got time for that. But anyways, this is, you can see it's holding things well, again, valve core, that seems to be a theme here for me, is not closing it. But yeah, this is what it looks like, and it just kind of, you start riding and that's it. And then obviously when this happens, you'd wanna go to Freewheeler and be like, hey, I need a new tire on this. Now, if you're my husband, he has like 3 plugs in his, and he rode it that way for like 3 months. So anyways, you can kind of do what you want with that. While we're on the topic of flats, you could have all this fancy stuff like bacon strips and, darts, but if you have no air in your tire, you need to have a way to put more air in. So there's 2 methods. First is a hand pump, and second is CO2 and adapter. There's different reasons for why you would carry these, and to be honest, sometimes I carry both. The hand pump is kind of foolproof because it's not gonna run out, and if you're afraid of that situation, you can always carry this. This fits into a back pocket of your jersey pretty well. It also fits in a lot of the wider saddles. So you're basically doing this onto the side of the road. It's not a lot of air, so like we said, if you're running tubeless and you need to reseed the tire, CO2 can sometimes be helpful for that. And it just takes a lot of manual force essentially, but definitely gets the job done, and I would say this is preferred from a lot of people. CO2 I really like just because it's really quick, and sometimes, most of the time I'll have this pre-threaded, like if I'm gonna be racing, it's kind of pre-threaded in my back pocket, and it's not even in my flat repair kit. It's literally in my back pocket if I just need to put some air in quickly. So these are really scary to use for the first time for a lot of people. I literally thought I was gonna blow my face up like for multiple months until I just got over it. And I was like, you're gonna use like 3 of these and you're gonna get over that fear. A tip is that you definitely wanna make sure that it gets really cold as you use it. So a lot of CO2s will come with like a little, basically a cozy, think of a beer cozy, but for your CO2. That will come as an adapter around the CO2. But oftentimes I have a glove on and I'm just going to use that, or I use the bottom of my jersey. So, but yeah, Pat's going to show you, this is a really nice adapter. He'll explain why he likes that one.
Yeah,
or something
totally.
Like this.
So she mentioned both pumps, and hand pumps are great because you never run out of air. This, I just wanted to show you, this is my favorite one. So I lead a ride every Wednesday, and I was borrowing this one from a friend for many rides because I didn't want to waste my CO2 on people's stuff. If you're not in a rush, you don't necessarily need CO2, but it is super fast and more efficient. This is my favorite hand pump. It's small. If you have a fat bike or a mountain bike, it actually has a high volume or high pressure setting. So I always set it, like for this one, I'll always set it in the high volume. You start it up, it's easy, and then once you get up to past 40 pounds, you change it to high pressure, and it changes the stroke of the. So this one is my favorite small hand pump that we sell. It's not even that expensive. I think it's got like a 5-year warranty and everything too, but that's my favorite hand pump if you're gonna get one. And then she mentioned it fits in jerseys. It also can fit on like water bottle cages, wherever, or in a small bag, but that's my favorite. And then CO2s, same thing. Most people, I was afraid when I first used mine, and probably my funniest story is that I did one on a ride. I got home And then I was in the garage in a panic, just, oh, why didn't I take this out? I undid it, and it, bam, shot off like a gunshot to a garage. So you just want to make sure you always empty the CO2 before you take it out, because it is compressed air, and it'll just shoot off like a gun. So, for instance, I guess, is this?
You're supposed to, not scare them, Pat.
No. So it isn't intimidating. So she has one that's like a trigger, which works just fine. You just have to be pretty. Basically, it's not foolproof. You just got to get it that one shot. So I recommend carrying at least 2 of these. It'll actually say on the ones we sell what tire size and what pressure it'll get it to. This is my favorite one. I used to sell them when they were plastic and they'd break, and they finally redesigned them. Now they're all metal. This is my rusty one I carry with me. But you want to make sure. So on this one, it's called the Red Zeppelin. You've got open or close valve. So you always want to have the valve closed all the way. Then you can install the CO2 fully, and it'll get cold like she said. But that'll go in, it'll get cold. The reason I like this one too is because this thread will work on either one of these valves here. So it's threaded for Schrader valve, so it'll thread right on here, or it'll thread right onto a Presta valve or a tubeless valve. So on this, the reason it's foolproof is you get this in, you don't really have to worry about losing air quickly. You unscrew your Presta valve head all the way. Then this will screw right onto your valve. So I always screw it on basically till it stops. And then you'll use this. So it's just like using almost like a compressed air compressor. So you can kind of get it whatever pressure you want. Yeah, it's close. A little more, and then when you're done, you just take it off, shut the valve. It is cold, even the valve is cold. Since this one was just plugged and there's sealant probably gathering there, I like to turn it down here, give it a little love taps just so that sealant will shake around wherever that plug is. So if you're running tubeless or if you're just doing a tube, it's way quicker if you're racing like Paige, or if you just don't feel like sitting on the side of a road. I don't like using hand pumps when it's freezing. So if it's cold outside and I'm trying to be quick, I'll just use a CO2, or it's just basically it's faster, but you're going to spend more money. These are anywhere from like $1.50 to $3 each usually. So
I think that's pretty much it. Are there specific questions? And then if anyone would like to practice taking their tire off, now would be a good time. We can help with that. So.